Excellent, thank you. Good morning. My name is Ron Skowronski, and I am very privileged and delighted to be here with you today as we gather as the Unitarian-Universalist Church of Niagara. On today, February the 2nd, which is historically and hysterically noted as Groundhog's Day, I am sad to report that from what I have gleaned through the media, Puxatawny Phil indeed saw his shadow, which I believe predicts another 6 weeks of winter. I'm also sad to report that many people are talking about groundhog barbecue, but that's a completely another story. To begin our service today, our opening words, I have chosen a prayer from Harry Meserve. And if you'll please close your eyes and experience this prayer with me. From arrogance, pompousness, and from thinking ourselves more important than we are, may some saving sense of humor liberate us. For allowing ourselves to ridicule the faith of others, may we be forgiven. For making war and calling it peace, special privilege and calling it justice, indifference and calling it tolerance, pollution and calling it progress, may we be cured. For telling ourselves and others that evil is inevitable while good is impossible, may we stand corrected. God of our mixed up, tragic, aspiring, doubting, and insurgent lives, help us to be as good as in our hearts we have always wanted to be. Amen. And now we have our affirmation of chalice lighting. If you'll repeat after me. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. We now come to, before we engage in our responsive reading, hymn number 391. I don't know about you, but I'm still recovering from a 4-week bout of bronchitis, so I sound like a bag of broken glass. So if you don't hear me leading you, that's why. But if you'll turn to the hymn 391, and let us sing Voice Still and Small. Our responsive reading today excuse me, comes in our green hymnal. That's not been around in a very long time. In our gray hymnal, of course, and the responsive reading is 521. I will begin with the first stanza, and if you'll please follow me in succession. May I be no one's enemy, and may I be the friend of that which is eternal and abides. May I never rejoice in the ill fortune of one who has wronged me. May I never fail a friend. May I always keep tame that which rages within me. May I know good people and follow in their footsteps. Eusebius, I think that's the author. Don't quote me. We now come to that portion of our devotional service we call our joys and our sorrows. Again, I thank you for indulging me, but on the 6th of January, we sent our beloved Buck, our 14-and-a-half-year-old Boston Terrier, to what we euphemistically call going over the Rainbow Bridge. We are doing actually very well, my wife and me. We really believe we did the absolute best for Buck, and goodness knows Buck always did the absolute best for us. And I want to thank everybody who extended their condolences, their sympathy, their love, because no truer love do people feel, I believe, than the love they have for their feather and fur covered friends. As I mentioned, on a more humorous note, Mr. Puxatawny Phil did see his shadow, and I'm going to ask him to reconsider, to go back, to rethink his position, and come back out and declare spring tomorrow morning. As always, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's funny in the humorous sense, because it's obviously no joke. We continue to grieve and wring our hands and express our fear and our sense of inadequacy to deal with many things in our life. Some of them, of course, most recently have been in the political arena. And I can't tell you how many times I have this conversation with Unitarian-Universalists, Presbyterians, Jews, Buddhists, etc. There is, as it says in Christian scripture, the fear of war and rumors of war, and most of you know the rest of how that goes. And the only thing I can say is yes, that is a sense of tremendous sorrow, tremendous angst. And yet, on the other hand, we are, whether we often acknowledge it or not, we are called religionists. We have a sense of the divine, a sense of the sacred. And it is my contention that as we center ourselves in that sense of the divine, that sense of the sacred, that this too shall pass. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said in his Herculean battle for civil rights, that this too we shall overcome. If anyone else would like to come up and offer a joy or a sorrow?
So after 2 months?
It's on.
After 2 months?
Yep.
I no longer, I believe, sound like a bag of cats. And also I want to light a candle for my friend Jermaine, who is on the road today returning back from Vermont. I think I mentioned it. His son-in-law, who is a Border Patrol officer up near the Canadian border, was one of the officers involved, well, he shot the perp, let's put it that way. And his partner was killed, it was last week. And he arrested the woman. Apparently their car or whatever, their vehicle, was full of military grade, like a whole arsenal of stuff. Who does that?
Good morning, everyone. This week, but all weeks, but especially this week since last week's Live Simple or something, what was it? Live Slowly was last week. So this week I kept that in extra mind, and I just had so much joy this week. We went to the reservoir sledding. We drove around Goat Island and walked to see the frozen falls. We played so much bingo, or so much checkers and chutes and ladders, and we went bowling and saw a movie. And I'm just really grateful for life and time and taking things slowly, that I can still do that in this day and age and enjoy life simply. And the other, couple weekends ago, I wasn't here for Sunday, and Shays does a free family movie, and Emerson loves the subway, so we had nothing else to do. I missed church that Sunday, and we went and got on the subway at UB and took the train down, saw the movie, and then took the train down to the end, and then turned around, just for fun, just to take the subway, taking it the whole way. And yeah, that's it. So I'm thankful for my family and time and simplicity.
Good morning. My name's Meg. Trials and tribulations and joys too. My mother has been staying with me for almost 2 weeks, but she went home safely. We were looking, I know I've been talking to you about her finding an apartment in this area. At any rate, last week I made the bad decision of driving to go get gasoline, I thought, on a reservation. And I got pulled over for driving too slow, and I got arrested. Driving while ability impaired, they said, because I had taken a sleeping pill the night before. So they took blood, and so we'll see what happens. But it was a bad choice on my part. I had slowed down at a school zone and hadn't sped up fast enough, I guess. And I don't know. I guess you just say, what do they say? Tell it to the judge. But I'm grateful I didn't hurt anybody else or myself. And that's what I'm trying to look at it like. And court date's February 19th. But my joy of it is that my mother did find a really lovely apartment in Lockport at Packet Boat Landing. which I'm really grateful for. That kind of opened up when one door closed, another one opened. And that, as Ron was sharing about what's going on in the world, I just realized how small my tribulations are to the big picture. I don't know which battle to choose out there. I mean, birthright children, there's just so many that are affecting my life too, and those around me. So I'd like to light a candle for that.
Thank you. Excuse me. Yep, I think right there. Well, you can. Sometimes hard to find the holster, I know. We now come, as we prepare for the sermon, to the offertory, to the offering, if you will, reminding you lovingly that it is through your generosity and only your generosity that it makes this ministry possible, and that it makes the overall ministry of the Unitarian-Universalist Church possible. And so to that, we say thank you.
Well, generally I give a slight intro there. But that's okay, we'll just. Oh, so sorry. Okay, here we go.
Carry on, carry on.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you. This past month has been a little bit challenging for me, as I mentioned earlier. I fell ill with bronchitis not very long after I saw you last, about a week after, yeah, about a week afterward, maybe a little bit longer. Anyway, I spent 2 weeks in bed and then finally did what most real men do, let my wife drive me to the doctor. I was stubborn. I thought I could, drink chamomile tea and take a handful of aspirin, and none of it worked. So finally, after about 1.5 pounds of antibiotics, I'm on the mend and I am not contagious. Lest I would not be here if I were. And the funny part was that my doctor, having a tremendous bedside manner, said, well, the bad news is you've got bronchitis, but the good news is you're doing quite well, because it took me 4, almost 5 weeks to overcome my bronchitis. So eat your vitamins, do everything your doctor tells you, and stay warm, because them viruses, et cetera, they are out there. But during that period of time that I had to basically lay down, and that's the worst thing in the world for me. I am a person of activity. I like to get out and get to my office at the church. I like to do things. I like to be on the phone, the whole bit. And I frankly was not able, just not able. And it gave me an opportunity, though not one that I was obviously seeking, to do something that everybody does, of course, but this was something of a very, very deep nature, and that's self-reflection. And of course, I mentioned it during Joys and Sorrows, and part of that self-reflection, that deep reflection was, what to do. The world in its current condition, what can we do, what can I do? And of course, all of us, I think, myself included, feel there are times that when we have these moments where we are seeking clarification, where we are seeking perhaps some kind of a spiritual epiphany, we get nothing. We get nothing. We seem to kind of hit a wall. I know St. John of the Cross, if you're familiar with any of his work, he calls it a dark night of the soul. Whether you believe it or disbelieve it, there is a deep sense of, as they say, looking into the abyss. And you may scream into the abyss, but nothing comes back. And that is a feeling of deep powerlessness. A sense of, I'll use the word, despair. And yet it's always been my conviction that if we give ourselves enough time and we cut ourselves what I'll call a break and truly try to calm our anxiety, and this can be done through meditation, deep breathing exercises. You folks are not unfamiliar with these things. That maybe, just maybe, we will gain some insight into not so much the future, but perhaps the here and the now. And the conclusion that I drew when I was in this kind of a sense of betwixt and between was that is indeed the most potent medicine for this high anxiety that this is only the beginning, this high anxiety that so many are going through. And that the medicine is to strive to remain in the present. We can do nothing, and you know this about the past. The past is set. It is over. It cannot, under any condition, be changed. And the future is a multi-level manifestation of a variety of opportunities, speculations, all of that. So the only thing you really have control over, and the only thing that they claim, and people like Eckhart Tolle and the Dalai Lama and others of that spiritual ilk, the only thing you can have absolute control over is yourself in the eternal moment. So what does that mean? Well, again, it means that through a cleansing deep breath, or perhaps going within, we can somehow gain a sense of balance. Not to worry about something we have no control over, the past, and absolutely or very little control over the so-called future, because both of those things produce nothing more and nothing less than existential angst, or what I like to call high anxiety. But when we go within ourselves and recognize that we are what we are, some kind of an individualization, some kind of a being or a consciousness, those of you who are religious in the more traditional sense, you're taught that you are a soul, an eternal soul, that always, as the great spirit of life, the generous spirit of life, is eternal. You have always in some fashion existed. You exist now, though that is a great, and I do say it with a capital G, a great mystery. And by some claims, you always will, in some manner or means, exist. There are those of us who are a little less faithful. We just don't know. I have my theories, I have my concepts, I have my ideas. But the one thing I have come to the conclusion of is that if I spend more time on these theories, concepts, and ideas, it goes back to the proposition of the most important thing in the universe, me. And nothing could be further from the truth, because I am not the most important thing in the universe. I am part of a grand whole. I am a drop in the ocean, a tributary, a stream that moves toward the great ocean of life. I am part of, and therefore, as I identify and unify with that, may I be arrogant enough to call it reality, I feel not a need to control, but I feel a sense of flow, a sense of moving forward regardless of what the appearances, what the circumstances, and what the so-called, well, highs and lows of life are. We spend an enormous amount of time wondering, worrying, and contemplating me. Not me personally, of course, but well, that might not be so bad. No, I'm okay. But if we were to, as the great religionists, such as a Yeshua, Jesus, or a Buddha, or a Lasu, the indication is to detach from self, from the me. And that whatever is occurring in Hindu culture, religious culture, is viewed as Maya, or illusion. And there is a consciousness, an awareness that there is so much more beyond these three so-called dimensions that we perceive ourselves to live, move, and have our being in, that the only thing we can do is the best we can do to identify with that sense of we're part of a large, progressive, growing, evolving whole. You know, it's funny. You talk to folks now, and as I mentioned again, about the so-called future and how people have an enormous amount of anxiety and this concept of, oh my God, the sky is falling. And yet if you study the human condition, if you study history, if you study human behavior, human motivation, you're going to find, and I defy anybody to debate me on this, you're going to find things that will make you go pale. If you study, for example, Victorian or Edwardian history and some of the beliefs people had, and some of the practices they had, and some of the abuse and the violence toward women and children and animals and all of it, you would say, what we're going through, I don't want to be glib and say it's nothing, but we appear to be moving in a forward direction. Hard to believe as that might be. Hard to believe that might be. So how do we strive to move in that direction in a way that hopefully will move us, I don't want to say more quickly, but more efficiently and more comfortably and hopefully more peacefully? And that the word I want to give you today, your word for the day, is inclusion. Inclusion. We appear to still be, after thousands and thousands of years, as though mesmerized with our, I alluded to it earlier, our individuality, our specialness, our uniqueness, our difference. And at the end of the day, when you study the world tendency toward not religion so much, but spirituality as espoused by the greats, teach us to lose that sense of self. And the more we gain, the more we strive to include everyone and everything in a spirit of light-heartedness, in a spirit of compassion, in a spirit of empathy, in a spirit of it's all going to work out just fine, just you wait and see. It ultimately begins to show itself as just that all things do work together for good. Now, the traditional scriptural end of that is to those that love the Lord. Well, the Lord, if you study a little bit of theology, is not meaning a singular person, but meaning the Lord of life, meaning the consciousness, the life energy, the spark, loving life itself. And I've met many people, stone cold atheists, people who believe there's nothing after death, that there was nothing before life, that somehow we just, as they say, manifest, and here we are. And when it's all said and done, we're done. Have a nice, whoops, you can't have a nice day, you're done. So, but these people that I've known have had joy because of their intimate knowledge of inclusion, their intimate knowledge that when they do accept others exactly for who they are, in all of, as we say in UU, in its diversity, in all of its diversification, no judgments, no criticisms, none of that garbage, that when we just acknowledge that we are all in this experience, whatever mysterious experience life is, that as we are in it, the more inclusive we strive to be, not only will we be making those who we include happier, healthier, safer, saner, more secure, but we will be doing it unto ourselves. Because again, if I may be a little metaphysical and a little scriptural, it is done unto you as you believe. If I want love, I need to be loving. If I want to be understood, I need to strive to understand. It seems to be a natural order of the universe. Can I prove it? No. Can you? Yes. By how you express and experience this thing called life. Before Jesus left this planet, he said, "Lo, I bid you peace. I bid you my peace. And lo, I am with you always." A very comforting statement. Whether it's literal or figurative, my opinion is irrelevant. Because to be left peace, even in the context of peace as a gift, as I give you the example that I gave you, so that not only will you give peace to others, but that you would have that same peace for yourselves, that is very comforting to me. In the Old Testament, it says very plainly, okay, "Be still and know that I am." What does that mean? I am. The way I've always interpreted it is, interpret it, is that this consciousness, this energy, this thing called life exists whether we understand it or not, whether we comprehend aspects of it, whether we have theories and notions, but that when we strive to just allow ourselves in that holy instant, in that singular time, when we strive to remain detached from all the details and just try to go within and feel life, that is when we will feel that connection. That is when we hopefully will be able to take that connection and do something positive and tangible with it. We don't show up here every Sunday because it's fun. We show up because, please forgive me, I'm speaking for you and I don't really have the right to do that, but I do believe that many of us come because we're striving to find meaning, and whether that be a contemplation or some other form of our own sense of reality, or whether we are seeking to not only, again, seek that meaning, but that we want to find a way to be useful in this world, to be useful. I've never found anything more useful than what I'm doing. For others, it might be nursing. For others, it might be other people who are homemakers, whether they be male, female, it doesn't matter. The point is, when we do go within, when we acknowledge that spirit, that sense of life, and when we strive then to take that and reach out to anybody and everybody, no exceptions, a spirit of inclusivity, a spirit of acceptance of diversity, where we are seeking liberty and justice for all, not some, not most, not many, all. It's my contention that there may come a time in our evolution that we will achieve something that a lot of people are not familiar with. How many of you are deeply familiar with Judaism, the religion of the Hebrew? Kind of, maybe, sort of, perhaps. Okay. Here's the thing. The difference between what would be called most of the Orthodox Christian theologies and Judaism is actually pretty interesting. And I recently had an opportunity to consult a rabbi about this, and it was interesting. It says Christianity wants to prepare you for the greater life that is to come. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't, elbow somebody on your way to heaven. However, Judaism is a little bit different. Judaism says, I am not as concerned about an afterlife as I am this life. So my prime directive, my purpose, my usefulness must be to create a world, I'll use my own phraseology, a world that works for everyone, no exceptions, that is actually a better place than heaven. A better place than heaven. So I say unto you, as you contemplate the concept that the infinite, gracious Spirit of life is with you every moment of every day, and that when you go within yourself to somehow commune with that presence and to be guided and hopefully uplifted by it, that spirit of inclusion becomes a white-hot ember, so that we can go out there and include and include and include till there is no one left to include, because it is all inclusive. And once that's done, we will have fulfilled the mandate of my rabbinical friend. We will not have created a place to go to, because this place we've ruined or destroyed, but we will have created a place that is so much better than any highest concept of that. That is, as my good friend Martha Stewart would say, something good and very, very good. Thank you, and bless you all. Oh, I sometimes have a worship associate at my elbow. So I walk away thinking, oh, good, I can sit down. No, I can't. All right, now. As we prepare for our announcements and indeed our closing words and extinguishing our chalice, let us turn in your hymnal to the closing hymn, number 196, Singer of Life.
Singer of life, all flowers are songs, with petals do you write. Singer of life, you color the earth, dazzling the eye with birds red and bright. Joy is for us, the flowers are spread, singing is our delight. Mortal are we, with all living things, with eagles in the sky. Even all gold and jade will not last, singing alone, I know cannot die. Here in this house of springtime bestow songs that like birds can fly.
It's going to take a little work, but I think we got the main of it. Again, we are so grateful that you have chosen to be with us this morning. And we ask you that after the service, if you would please join us. There'll be refreshments and coffee and that kind of good stuff. We want to express our gratitude to Teresa Labozhevsky. Did I pronounce that right? Oh. Labozhevsky? Easy for you to say. I'll check with her later. And our usher, Wally Lamb, from the House of Usher, of course. Anyway, I will be with you again, as that old expression, Lord willing and the creed don't rise, on the first Sunday of March. And hopefully we will have, actually, I couldn't imagine better weather for February than today, but it'll be even better than that in March. Do we have any other announcements that I need to be made aware of, or please?
I have one announcement that I think in the power line, Linda Stryker's dates might have been wrong, but I'll double check and fix that. And also, sometimes we don't have that many people on Zoom, but today with us, all service was Diane, Joan, Marge, and Pam. They're all here on Zoom today.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay. This could have been up on Joys and Sorrows, but got here late, but it's still an announcement, so it's sort of a sorrow. According to Phil, the groundhog, we got 6 more weeks of winter.
Everybody comedian in America, I'm telling you. Yes, dear lady.
I don't remember his name. I don't know if it's Buffalo Ben, or Buffalo Bob, or something like that. It's not Buffalo Bill, but the Buffalo version of Punxsutawney Phil said the same thing yesterday.
You're just a fountain of good news today, aren't you? Okay, any other announcements? Okay. If you'll please join me in prayer. Infinite Spirit, gracious Spirit of life, we've gathered together as brothers and sisters united in body, in mind, and ultimately in your Holy Spirit. We don't pretend to understand much of anything, but what we do understand is that the best of our understanding is that God is love, and those who choose to love shall truly know that which we call God. As we go forth out into the world, we covenant with your life itself and with each other, that we shall strive to be inclusive rather than exclusive, that we shall strive to be everything we possibly can be, so that we can eradicate suffering in any shape or form that we find it, that we can unite ourselves in such a fashion as to tangibly, palpably feel our unity, so that we may go forth out into the world with your great joy and your great peace. Amen. And if you'll repeat our chalice extinguishing words, please. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen.
Strolling down the avenue, me and my shadow, not a soul 4.